Welcome to the Dadhammer Podcast, a casual Warhammer show where we discuss all things 40k, Age of Sigmar, and literally everything else Warhammer related. So whether you are a beginner or a seasoned veteran, we are so glad that you've joined us on your Warhammer journey. I am your host, David the Warboss, and I'm joined by my friend, the Chaplain.
Hello, hello.
Hello. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. I am excited, as always, to talk about Warhammer on our podcast. But this one is a little special for me for two reasons. One, the probably the most important, I would say, is that this is officially the start of season 2 of our podcast. We made it. Season 2. This has been a full year of the Dadhammer Podcast, so pretty cool that we started this and then here we are. So this is the official. I remember when I was putting in, the shows over the last several months, and I kept putting in season 1. I'm like, we'll never do a season 2, and I thought, hey, season 2 started it. Well, at least when we started in April of last year, and now here we are. So it's still fun. I remember when I first started this with Medicaid Steve on this show. He was the original founder with me, and we always asked ourselves at the end of every show, Steve, is this still fun? Yeah, it's still fun. Okay, cool. Let's keep going. And now, Lee, I got you here. We got Stu. We've had several others on the show, and it's still fun. I still love it. And we talk about Warhammer all the time. We might as well hit record. And so here we are.
That's good to be part of it. And again, season 2. Isn't season 2 like the one where it gets really good?
Like we didn't have a cliffhanger on the last show though. We should have had a cliffhanger where like all the power shuts down and you hear creepy noises or something in the background. Will they survive? I don't know.
Will they be back again?
Maybe. Yeah. Well, anyone who has been listening to this show since the beginning, I really appreciate it. And if you joined us later in the game, that's okay too. Just really, really awesome to see the support that we've had over the last year. So we got more coming. We're very excited to start season 2. So we're around 45 to 50-ish episodes of this show. So we're gonna do 45-ish more, and then we'll see where it goes from there. All right. So as always, if you are listening, watching, whatever, we've expanded. Now we're of course on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, make sure to drop us a like, leave us a comment, let us know what you think and what you'd like to see on future episodes, and also be on the lookout. We're going to be putting some new video content out there with specifics around characters of the Warhammer universe, and we're going to kick it off with the White Dwarf poster boy himself, Mr. Grombrindle. I guess that's how you say it. Grombrindle. I don't know. Grombrindle? Does that sound right?
Grombrindle. It does sound like it sounds like
you're you're the British guy. You would know. How do they say it?
I mean, if we were to go Lord of the Rings, I'm sure it'd be Grombrindle. So okay. I think it's good. I think looking at the structure of the sentence of his name, or the structure of his name. Oh,
wow. Now we're getting serious.
Yeah. No, not at all. But Grombrindle, I think it's good. I mean, I don't think there's any other way of saying it.
Well, because the way you pronounce a lot of these Warhammer words, it seems, is sometimes all over the place, because that they'll say that, our BTs instead of our bites or our bites. Yeah, we're gonna go with Grombrindle. Anyway, be on the lookout for that dropping very soon, just in case you're curious about who the strange bearded dwarf is on the cover of the magazine, or as you'll see him with a mug of ale occasionally as well. So be on the lookout for that. But that is neither here nor there. We're going to talk about really cool stuff. So I told you about the first reason that I'm excited about this show, which is the start of season 2. The second reason, and it's not as important, but it's important to me. I have the new Ork Codex in my hands. I'll put it up here on the screen in front of my face. I know it's kind of blurry, but I have it in my hands. Very excited. I also have some wonderful orky dice that I'm going to talk about, but giving my impressions on the new Ork Codex, just first impressions. I've had a chance to look through it a little bit. So that's very exciting to get to talk about some 40K stuff, because we've been doing a lot of Age of Sigmar as of late. And we're going to continue a little bit with the Age of Sigmar front, where we'll be talking about the new Stormcast Prosecutors model. Those have come out as I don't want to say a re-release. They've gotten a glow up since from the classic models. They look really cool. Talk about those. And then finally, we're going to the new mode for Age of Sigmar Spearhead, which has been like the 40K combat patrol variant, but for Age of Sigmar. That's been announced official. They've been talking about it forever, but now they've really come out with some artwork, some graphics, some details, and it's everything we thought it was going to be, but several new bits and pieces, and also just some questions around what the potential 4th edition launch box is going to look like. Do we have some hints of what it's going to be based on the announcements from the Spearhead? I don't know. Well, we're going to talk about all about that stuff. Really cool. Very exciting. Lots of new news. But before we get started on any of that, let's hit our pile of potential, everyone's favorite. And Lee, I'm going to let you go first. Because I don't have a lot to share, but I'm going to start. Well, I actually do. Mine's not really Warhammer related. I'll talk pile of potential that's not Warhammer related. But how is your pile of potential? What amazing progress have you made in the last week?
Well, I kind of stalled. I stalled out slightly, kind of. I think I hit a stride at one point when I was kind of painting regular, most nights taking an hour or so just to even just do one little thing. But then life got a little bit hectic. So painting kind of stalled, but I have been building, preparing, priming. So I guess that kind of, counts. The idea of getting the models at a base level so that I can move forward from that. And then I just decided to, my airbrush broke. I dropped it and it bent the needle and all of that. So I had to wait for a repair.
How far did you drop it? That's like aggressive airbrushing you got going there.
I may have accidentally swung my arm out and it felt the exhilaration of a flying charge. Definitely rolled full 12 on that thing. And
I mean, like that's some, I was about to say, that's some aggressive airbrushing. That's got to be a thing. Like, hashtag aggressive airbrushing.
Just take it to the next level. So I waited for the parts to come in and then repaired it, and then got down to just practicing with it, just working on zenithal highlights, and then how I can use inks and different purples and magentas to build up like that base layer stuff that I've been working on with the purple shadow. So all good. I think the only other thing maybe I've painted was one of our friends did a commission for a Blood Bowl, the Blood Bowl box, and I just finished off the Dwarven Referee. So got that finished in an afternoon, and that was good. Practicing that, learning how to paint skin, and working on that, building it up tone. So kind of stalled, kind of did a little bit here and there, but everything's ready to really forge forward with painting and reduce that pile of potential.
Yeah, cool. Well, I mean, the Blood Bowl stuff you and I worked on originally, and then friend of the show, Chief Librarian Lawson, he's been on here a couple of times. He helped us out with some of the Blood Bowl painting. We did that for our local game store, Mechanical Keyboards, here in Fairview, and we're hoping to. Man, we painted that stuff. I helped by delivering it. But delivered it to Justin there at the store. If you're in the area, definitely check out Mechanical Keyboards. It's a really, really cool store. It's the name is somewhat misleading because it's very much mechanical keyboards if you're looking for one of those, but it also has a ton of gaming supplies. So all things Warhammer, card games. I mean, just a little bit of everything. And so we turned in the Blood Bowl stuff to the store for the official copy. And now he's got it set up on the table there, ready for games. And I went by today and looked at it. And I'm like, oh man, I really want to play Blood Bowl. But what I've been trying to do, and this kind of leads into my pile of potential update, what I've been trying to do is get my teenage son into something. Like, it's not just Warhammer. I've been trying for the longest time to get him back into Warhammer because he used to play Necrons when he was, 12, 13. And then over the years, he discovered, and I've talked about this on the show, but he has discovered Apex Legends and Fortnite and Rainbow Six Siege and all this stuff with his friends. And I get it. He wants to hang out with his friends more than me. That's not a problem. But, so for any parents listening to this, if you are thinking about getting your kids into Warhammer, I would say start early, but don't be bummed too bad if they drift away when they turn 15 or so. It starts to go away. But what I've been trying to do is to find another game that we can play together. And while I don't have any updates on my pile of potential, my Spearhead box is still sitting on my desk for Stormcast. I'm going to paint it. I'm going to assemble it soon. But in the meantime, I picked up Star Wars Unlimited, and on Star Wars Day is coming up. May the 4th is coming up. And this game has been getting a lot of buzz. It's a card game, has nothing to do with miniatures. And that's usually not my jam. I'm not a card player. I like playing games with miniatures. And so I picked this game up because my teenager loves Star Wars. So we played a couple of rounds. It's really fun. And you can do it in about an hour or less, depending on how well you know the rules. But we bought some booster packs, and that's been a good time. So it's not really, that's a pre-painted game. It doesn't require any painting, but it was cool. And he was looking for a Boba Fett, and he was hoping to get a Boba Fett in one of the card packs. And lo and behold, he got one out of the booster pack. So that was a big deal. So anyway, not much of a Warhammer thing, but Star Wars everybody likes Star Wars, and Star Wars Unlimited has been fun. So if you are looking for another game to play that doesn't require any miniature assembly or complicated rules to learn, Star Wars Unlimited is something you can learn and play in an evening fairly quickly. We played 2 games in one evening and learned the rules quickly. So there you go. That's my update on my pile of potential. That's a little bit of a cop out, but it is. Looking to spend some time with my son, so it is what
it's
it is.
A win. I think anytime we can spend some time with our kids in some way, it's a win. I remember with my youngest, playing, not with my youngest, with my oldest, playing like Pokemon, just building a team squad. I don't know what it was, something.
I've only played Pokemon a few times, and I was in the same boat. So
oh yeah, but once we learned how to play, it was fun, and I think anything you can do to interact with your kids, whether it's painting, and we see it all the time, like on with the guys that we follow on Instagram, them sitting down and doing painting with the kids. And one of my favorite models that I have in my collection is I've got one that my 10-year-old painted, the Electro Overkill, I think she called them.
Yeah.
Purple, magenta, Space Marines. And then I've got a Chaos Marine that's just covered in purple and silver and just whatever paint. But that's what she was 3 at the time, and she was like, I paint. And I was like, okay. In fact, I took her over today to the model store, over to Blackthorn, in Dixon. It's another one of our local stores. And she walked in and she was like, I'm here to paint like this. And I was like, well, it's not kind of how it works. She's like, I want to paint like that. And she's looking at the paint. She's like, ooh, this is good. Like, so, but I think that's one of the reasons why we started the Dadhammer podcast as well, is we're a bunch of dads that are enjoying this and refining the hobby. It brings us together, helps us, but also we do it because we want our kids to be involved. I mean, I laugh every time I look at our podcast on the Apple podcast. Like, my kid left a review, and I'm just like, what are you doing? And she's just like,
that's good.
It's cool, I like
super cool,
super cool. So she thinks it's cool that we have a podcast and a YouTube channel. I mean, I think I've got about a year left, and then we're no longer cool. We're like, my dad's weird. Paints plastic figures.
I turned in my cool card a long time ago. Now just it's fun. You just lean into it. Yeah, we have a podcast, and I've actually talked to people at my day job, and they find out I have a podcast. And I would say most of the people that I talk to about it are like, oh man, I've been thinking about starting one. And, I said this on the last show. If you're thinking about starting one, just do it. You never know what could happen. So, all right. So let's get into the real meat of the show here. And again, very excited. It is all things orky, and I have the Ork Codex in my hands. And this has been, this cover. I've taken a couple of pictures here. So for those of you watching, or for those of you listening, rather, I'll try to describe this as best I can. But if you've seen the announcements, the Ork Codex, the cover looks good. I will say in person, it's got a glossy finish. So the art, or the Warboss character on the front, I think that's a Warboss. Maybe it's a boss knob. Either way, I think it's Warboss. But the Ork character on the front is glossy, with everything else being a matte behind him. So I think that's been the normal, the MO for some of the other codex releases. They've had that kind of glossy stuff on the front. So that's the same here. I really like it. I think that just my first impressions, and I've thumbed through the codex. I haven't had a chance to play a game with any of the orc stats or the detachments or any of the new stuff here. But I did, I guess my top level thoughts. I wanted to showcase a few things, and I'll put them up on the screen. The point here is for me not to try to read all of this, but I wanted to highlight some of the detachments, because I think they really give a nice flavor. In the past editions of the game, I felt like the detachments were cool, but they didn't feel like wholly unique. And you can add some of the mechanized orcs. You can add some of the more the orc walkers and things. And so this dread mob makes me feel like, man, I can add a Morkanaut, I can add Killicans, I can add a Death Dread, and now I can really roll out something that is truly terrifying. They've got another one called Bully Boys, which I thought is a really cool name. It's a very again, very, very orky type of a detachment. And one of the really cool features on this particular one is that you can call two wogs. You can call two of them. So I guess you put in a Warboss, you put in Gazgul, in theory, but you can call two wogs which is, to me, one of the best rules. I mean, it's really, really cool. So Lee, now that you are hearing this, does this fill you full of dread, or are you excited?
I mean, it'll be fun, but watching things come in two waves, I mean, that's going to be hard work. I would imagine this would be really good to stack up at a key point in the game where you can call that one and then move it forward. So yeah, I remember the first time we played and you called a wog, and I was just like, what is going on? Like, it just isn't that where they almost get like hyped as well? Like the more, like they get more charged up.
Yeah, you get extra, you get higher strength, you get some extra attacks, you get to re-roll things, and it just it gets them hyped up, and you get to use it for an entire round. And then after the round is over, it goes off. So you really got to time it right. So typically I would call the wog in my second or third round, just depends, because if I can rush up the field really, really quickly in the first turn and I can get within charging distance, then it's great. Because if you call it too early, then you don't get the full effect of all of your boys and all of your melee characters, in trying to do all the attacks. So if you call it too early, you don't get that. If you call it too late, then most of your force is dead because they're orcs, and so they're going to die. So it's really about timing. Can you call it early enough, but not too late again. And so it's a little bit of a risk reward, but that is orcs. So now with the Bully Boys, now I can call two of them, as long as, I would assume, and I'd have to read the rules again, but again, just doing a high level overview, as long as the Warboss is still alive. So I would just keep him in the back, but then now you're holding him back a little bit. I don't know. You gonna have to pick and choose. But as long as he's still alive, I can call 2 of them. So man, I would call that in maybe the second battle round, or do it in the second battle round, doing it again in the fourth, just to hammer things home.
I think for me, the way to combat that would be to try and take out your warlord as soon as possible. Whether that is, if you have an assassin or something like that who can look out, to ignore the. It's not called Lookout Sir anymore, is it? It's called something else.
Yeah.
But that idea, I mean, I'll be looking to take him out as soon as possible in order to stop that, because I think once you effectively, then it's twice per game so
Yeah.
man,
I mean, originally it's once, right? You only get one shot, and then if you don't fully maximize it, you feel bad. But now I've got 2 chances. But the reason I point this out though is that this is detachment specific.
Yeah.
So there's some other ones. There's one that is called Cult of Speed. I believe it's called. Let me look at my notes. Yeah, Cult of Speed. One of the things that I really liked about the Cult of Speed, and I love my vehicles. I love because red ones go faster, as we all know. So I liked Cult of Speed. It wasn't as cool as the Bully Boys one or the Dread Mob. So the Cult of Speed, when I was reading through it, it gives you lots of movement shenanigans, as best way I could describe it. So extra movement, you can advance and shoot and charge, and it's a lot of and with movement. But orc shooting is bad. I mean, it's not great. You're hitting on 5s most of the time. So all of the charging forward, advancing, and then shooting, it's not going to be great. But I would say that if you're going to run a heavy vehicle type of an orc army, then this is going to be good for getting you into melee quickly, or at least up the field quickly. And then if you're going to have some trucks, then you have your boys in those trucks. You disembark those, and then you run into melee again. So I think what I really like about this codex so far, though, is just that I could run a fully, vehicle-based army with tons of vehicles and do this Cult of Speed stuff and just moving all over the place. Or if I tend to do this, I like Morkanauts and Death Dreads and Killicans and these Orc Walker units. I like all that stuff. I could do a Dread Mob, or I could do Bully Boys because I really like to run Gazgul. I just think he's a really cool model, and I like his melee capabilities. And plus, one of the best things is that Makari is still it's still incredibly annoying. I'm going to pull him up here on the screen. I wanted to take a picture of the data sheet because it's got Gazgul there with his abilities, and he does 4 damage, by the way. And he's got 6 attacks, hitting on 2s with a 14 strength and 3 AP, and then damage 4. So he could really, pump out some damage with his Gork's Claw. But I wanted to point out Makari there with his 2-up invulnerable save. It's so annoying. And because I don't know why he gets a 2-up invulnerable save. It makes no sense to me, but it's okay. It's Makari, so he gets the invulnerable save.
Wasn't it the first time we played? We did the game day where we all went over to yours, and we had 2 games. So we had 1 game next to each other, and then we made the rule of the Veil of Darkness that you couldn't ask questions to the other people because the whole game was like, hey, what about this? Because we were trying to learn 10th. And that was where I bought the Storm Surge, I think it was, the big and that was where effectively I think Gazgul got close, and I basically it was equivalent of basically him resting the gun on top of his head and just going like that, because that was fun. But that's the only other time that I've killed Gazgul. And wasn't it like did the rules carry on where you could only take a certain amount of wounds per round? Was it like 4 wounds per round or something with him?
Yeah, it was there was a limit, so you couldn't just outright one shot Gazgul, and which was great for me, but you had a limit, so you had to be real strategic on the types of shots that you dumped into Gazgul, because if you had something that did more than I want to say it was 4 damage per phase, I think. So you could do X amount of damage during your shooting phase, and then you could do, I guess in theory, tank shock on your charge phase, and then you could do melee. So you could take him out if you had a really heavy unit, but it's going to be tough. So I always liked Gazgul. He's not super expensive from a points standpoint, but because he's a cool looking model, his claw is just massive. And then Makari is just really just an insult to anybody else on the table, because he's so small. He's got his little banner, and he just follows Gazgul around and somehow gets a 2-up invuln save. Now, when you fail that save, you don't get to make that save anymore. But a 2-up invuln save is a pain in the butt to deal with. It's great.
What's funny is though, orcs just in general just remind me of like hooligans. And there's always like, whenever you go again, soccer games, in England, there's always the big dude who is just like, you just don't mess with him. But there's always the annoying ones in the background that are giving it like all this and like, why, like, just getting everyone amped, and then the big dude's just there to save the day. And
that's Makari.
Makari's at the back, like, telling Space Marines what they are and where they can go, and then Gazgul's just like,
Makari's the ankle biter, right? He's over there nipping at your heels the whole time. No, that's great. I'm excited that he's been there. No huge changes with Gazgul, and I looked over the bulk of the data sheets. I did put up here the Ork Boys, because that's a classic for any Ork player. One of the things that I wanted to point out with this particular one that I really liked was the fact that they put pictures in of the different weapons. So I noticed this in Ork Codex. I don't know if they've done it with others. I mean, I have the Tyranid Codex, but I haven't spent as much time with that. But what I like is they got the data sheet on the page, and then at the bottom they say, hey, if you want to take a big choppa, this is what this looks like, which is great, because half the time, especially if you're a brand new player to any particular army, you're looking to assemble the model, and then it says it comes with if you've never played orcs before and you see Shuda and big choppa, and you're like, what the heck is that, right? You assume it's a gun, but what's that? What's a choppa and a big choppa? What's the difference? I like the fact that they put the pictures of those weapons above the models themselves, so that you can at least have an idea if you're a brand new orc player. I just thought it was a nice touch. So the other thing that they added to this, and they've done this in past editions and past codexes, is the Crusade rules. And I've been a fan of Crusade. The problem with Crusade though is I played it several games, and it's like if you are unfamiliar with Crusade, it is essentially a role-playing game. You can add experience points, Crusade points, and you can build up your force over time. And every army has this. It's really cool idea in theory. The problem that I've always had with Crusade is that when I get together with you or with Steve or with any of our other crew, Crusade is too much. It's too much for me to try to figure out when we're just sitting down to play a game. I just want to play, right? So we're either going to play Combat Patrol, we're going to play a full 2,000 point game or something like that. And Crusade is just more paperwork. I mean, that's kind of what it became for us. It's like an administrative task, because now you have to keep with all these points and you got to write stuff on paper. And for people that really love that, more power to you. That's great. And what they've done with this particular one, with the Crusade rules, they're adding these Crusade points, and now they've got these things called stomping points. And I mean, it's very orky, and that's great. That's fine. The problem though is that it's just one more thing for me to keep up with. And now I've got stomping points and Crusade points, and again, this is not a section that I'm going to be spending a lot of time in for the Codex, but I'm sure there are other players out there that just love Crusade, and they can't wait to take their Crusade army that they've had in 9th edition and start it over or add to it with 10th, and that's something that everybody's going to be really excited about. So I don't know many people that play Crusade, but in my opinion, it is just one more thing to do, an administrative task that I'm not necessarily excited about. So, Lee, have you ever played Crusade at all? Have you ever touched it?
No, I mean, again, when we play, it's either combat patrol or it's 1,000, 2,000 point battle. I think it's interesting. I think the idea of building a narrative, building a force bit by bit, I think that is fun. But I think you're going to have to dedicate some time to it. It kind of feels like if you're going to do a D&D campaign, like that's going to take years of your life, depending on how much you're into it. I mean, there are them short campaigns that people do, but I think with anything like that, like a crusade is the word crusade is just a long experience. It's a long battle over time. So I think I've never done it. Does it sound interesting? Yes, but I think it's one of those things that if I start it, I want to see it through. And right now, I don't have the time to be able to do that with family and work and life.
Yeah.
When we all retire and we're all at the retirement home when we're playing, let's go to Crusades. Let's do this.
Yeah, we don't have anything else to do, but in
it.
between lunch and dinner, what are we
That's
going to do besides take a nap, right? We're going to play Warhammer and maybe fall asleep halfway through the game,
But I'd maybe in the future I'd give it a go, but right now I don't have the time.
Yeah, I think that the problem is that it requires paperwork. You have to keep up with your stats. It's very D&D pencil and paper role playing game esque. It's not as involved as that, but anytime, you have to kind of keep a scoreboard. It's more like keeping score in a baseball game or something, and you're marking down the strikes and the who got on base and how many runs and any errors, and you're not doing it as to that length. But what I am having to do is keep track of how many times I killed a unit, right? Or did I take out the warlord? Or did my guy, my warlord die or something? And then at the very end, I keep track of all of that, and then I'm given points to spends to build up my force where I can add war gear or add additional units or heal ones. And then if I got hurt, I would have to roll to see if I got some kind of permanent damage to my guys, or I'd take a penalty. So it's cool, but it's involved. So I think you got to know what you're getting into. And then you got to remember, like if you go to somebody's house and you forget all those papers, well, you just
game over.
I don't know what you're going to do. So I think they might actually, now that I think about it, if they would build it into the app, they might get a little more traction, so it's like a digital way to keep up with your forces and something to prompt you to say, hey, don't forget, at the end of the game, mark how many units you killed or how many objectives you took. I think that would be cool and maybe make it a little more interactive. But overall, I think the Ork Codex, one last thing I wanted to throw up here, and you might have gotten a preview if you were watching here, but a nice little touch they put at the very end of the Codex with some retro artwork. It's very heavy metal looking, back from maybe let's say the 70s, 80s Ork artwork with the checkerboard aesthetic, and it looks like the cover of a heavy metal band or something like that. Really cool. I thought it was a nice touch that they put at the end, and just reminiscent of the old art style. So I thought that was pretty cool.
So you didn't go limited edition then?
No, and I've been talking about this. I keep saying that it's $30, more than that. No, they've upgraded. It's now $40 more. So in the United States, your normal codex is $60, which is still a fair bit. The limited edition is now $100, and man, I wish they needed to throw in a free model for that. Give me something extra. But
did it not come edition. So the Tau one came in the Crew box. The Dark Angels came in the Deathwing Assault box.
Yeah.
So is it because this is a big faction that they didn't do it? Because obviously those, the Tau's a big faction, and Dark Angels that feels more like a supplement to the Space Marines Codex. But did they not bring it out in a big box? Like,
no, they did the Battle Force box, which was the Stompa Boys. But I think the reason they didn't do any kind of big release is because they didn't come out with new models.
oh,
I mean, they
okay.
only had one new model for the entire army range, which was the Big Mech, and he's okay. He's available in the Stompa Boys box, but update on my thoughts on the Stompa. It's one of those things where I thought it'd be ironic to get it, and I saw a post. Somebody made a post on Reddit recently in the Ork subreddit, and they had a picture of an assembled Ork Stompa unpainted, and all it said was "never again." And I've heard that it's kind of a pain to assemble because it's just all these extra panels and everything to put. I don't know. It just doesn't look fun to put together. And to me, if it's not going to look cool at the end, then it's not really going to be worth assembling. And even then, I think the data sheet for the Stompa is still not good. It's still a really expensive model, and I think that the problem is that because it's so big and it's got those giant guns for arms, that orcs aren't great at shooting. So you're not really getting a lot out of it. And the only way that I think in the future that they could make the Stompa really viable is to make it a melee powerhouse and something quick, which I don't know how they would do that. I mean, put tank wheels on the bottom of it, make it a speed freak. I don't know how that would work.
So you're kind of saying, hey, it would be great if the orcs had something like a Brutalis Dreadnought, some version of that. But don't you already have that?
They
like
do.
Death Dread?
They have it. They have a Death Dread. And then there's the Morkanaut, which is slightly faster. I'm just saying, if they're going to come out with a giant like knight level, right, like a Chaos Knight, or if they're going to come out with a knight, it just doesn't. It's not as powerful as those things, and it needs to be close. It doesn't have to be exact. It still needs to be orky and random, but it just doesn't look powerful. It looks like it could fall apart at any moment.
Yeah. I don't. It sounds funny, but just as you were talking about that, I was picturing the labyrinth, with David Bowie, and he's just like, the babe.
Oh yeah,
Power of the babe with the power. Hoodoo, voodoo, you do, we do, that one. But the bit where she gets to like the kingdom, and then there's these goblins, and they're in
the
like
mech thing.
Yeah. That's where my mind went.
It's basically a Stompa.
But then this is what I think it was on the last podcast you were talking about. Maybe I'm getting it confused, but Skaven, was there something you mentioned that there was like a button and it was like push the green button or something like that?
Oh yeah, not that, or hit that button or something like that. There's an enhancement or part of the detachment rule or stratagem or something in the Codex that I think it was about the Dread Mob. Detachment. Yeah,
I mean that's just, for me, that's funny. You know what I mean? Like they're just push it, because that's what happens in the Labyrinth movie. They're like, push the button, and they're all pushing it, and it's like it's going crazy.
It's very similar, I think.
But I tell you one thing and I don't know if I dreamt it. If I did, it's a really cool idea, or if I actually saw it. But it was like someone somewhere, and maybe GW created it, or maybe not. But it was little Gretchen / Grot tanks. So like little, almost think of like your Power Wheels, but with a little thing in with a tank. Is that real, or did
that's real? It was a Forge World model.
Okay.
And so now it is now moved to Legends, I think, meaning it's not in the Codex. Yeah, those things were always interesting.
They're fun.
I agree. I just they were always Forge World models. They were never a plastic kit, so they're resin, and they're expensive, and they're cool looking little guys, but just not something that was ever mainstream, at least not to my knowledge, and they're not in the Codex at all this time. So not even an option.
I'd have had a legion of those things, like driving up, and then I would have taken one of the Gretchen and put like a Napoleon hat on him like that and just pointing forward. Like,
yep.
I mean, could have
the Gretchen are great. Yeah, the Gretchen are great. they still, I think they've gotten away. Back in 8th edition, you could do the Grot Shield, where you just had a line of Gretchen in front, and then you could do the stratagem. I think it was Grot Shield, where if you had Gretchen close to your Orc boys and someone shot at your Orc boys, you could play the stratagem, and basically it's the equivalent of an Orc boy holding up a Gretchen like in front of the bullet when it comes, and you take out the Gretchen instead of the Orc boy. I just the narrative of that was always really funny to me. So the Orcs are definitely my favorite 40k army aside from Votan, but that's just because I like dwarves. But the narrative side and just how fun they are, they're just so fun to play, and I always feel good when I'm Orcs because of the randomness to them. I never I'm a competitive person. I don't like to lose, but I like playing Orcs because of the random, and because they're so fun and weird, that when something crazy happens and they blow up and it causes me to give up an objective or something hilariously, that's okay. It's I'm having a good time versus another army that's very serious, and I almost feel worse when something bad happens.
Are the bubble chuckers still in it?
Bubble Chucka, yeah. So those are the mech guns, and you can pick Bubble Chucka, Smash a Gun. You can pick different ones. So those are still in there. Still very random, deadly or absolutely worthless. Just depends on what you roll, which is great. So.
I don't know if this is part of it or not, but like Orcs remind me of football hooligans, and then whether it's back in the day that was a big thing within England, and then one of those the hooligans were known from West Ham. So West Ham were called the Hammers, but then their theme song when you walked in was a song called "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles." So like I'm just in my head going, I wonder if one of the designers was like, we need it. Okay, these are like hooligans. I like West Ham. Let's do a bubble.
Sure.
I
mean, that's the inspiration is going to come from somewhere. So the mech guns are still in there. The Bubble Chucka stuff is still in there. Boomdaka Snazwagon is still in there. So all the classics. I am looking forward to playing Orcs, and I've also got, and I teased it earlier, I've got the new, I'll put it up here on the camera, the new Orc dice. I like these things. I think they look really good. Although I am noticing now that I've got on a camera, I've got a bit of a problem. See, so I've got, look, you see the dice that are on the camera here that are got like a white, and then I got this 3 here. They forgot to fill them in. Look at that. A defect.
Send it back.
Send it back. Yeah, I could probably email Games Workshop, and they have pretty good support. It just takes you like 3 weeks to get to hear from them. So, but I like the Orc dice. They have a nice green. They avoided the Christmas green, which is, and I didn't really like that previously. So this has got a nice dark green to them. So easy to see. I like the Orc symbol on them. So I'm a fan. I'm glad I got 2 sets.
So what detachment are you going to play? What's the one that you're like, this is it?
I think it's going to be Bully Boys, which is I like saying it too. Bully Boys. It's the one with to be able to call 2 wogs. I just think that's great. And if I don't play that, I might do the Dread Mob, which is the Death Dreads and Morkanaut and Killicans and things like that. I like orky vehicles and walkers. So that's probably, I'm thinking Bully Boys first, then maybe Dread Mob. I might try Cult of Speed, just because I have so many vehicles and I like the idea of a Mad Max type scenario where they're rushing up the field. So,
is there a stealth one? A stealth one with Snick?
I didn't see one, but I really don't care for the commandos, for the Orc commandos.
Yeah.
Orcs aren't sneaky. I don't like being sneaky. I just like everybody up the field. So yeah.
Well, I look forward to destroying lots of Orcs.
Yes, I'm sure you will.
And telling people as part of season 2 of our podcast of how many Orcs I destroyed.
Oh yeah, keep a tally.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to playing. Oh, no Crusade. Looking forward to playing a game, hopefully very soon, with the new Ork Codex and my fancy new dice that are now slightly defective, as we found out live on the podcast. I've got one dice that just does not have the little color filled in. So, Games Workshop, I'm coming for you. All right, so that is all things 40K. Let's move on to some Age of Sigmar news very quickly, and we'll get to the Spearhead announcement. I wanted to bring up the image of the new Stormcast Eternals model that they just released called the Prosecutor. It's new. What's old is new again. This was an older model that they have kind of given a glow up to, and I got to say, I really like this model. And part of this is probably because of the paint job. The wings look great. I love the blue on the edge of these wings. It's got an angelic looking type of a presence. I'm probably going to run. I don't know if I want to run the. I'm definitely going to pick this guy up. I like just the. It's different. You've got your other Stormcast models, which are more gold Space Marines, and this one looks completely different. To me, it would go alongside of my dragons that I have too, just to give it the whole winged, approach. It's a really cool model to me, and I also like the fact that it's not gold everywhere. It's now a little more. It's a silver, or a lead belcher color for the armor, but it gives it a different feel. It's this whole reforging thing that they're doing with the new Stormcast. So to me, looks cool. And then they've got this little ability here that I like that adds some of the flavor text to the wings. It's called Heralds of Righteousness, where as they are coming into the battlefield, you add 1 to the number of dice rolled when making charge rolls for this unit to a maximum of 3. So if you're going to make a charge roll and you're trying to get in within 12 inches, you roll 3d6 instead of 2. When it just it adds a purpose to the wings. It gives oh man, because I have this wings, now I can roll an extra d6 on my charge. And I always like game mechanics that take advantage of the theme of the model. Like when I look at this model and I see these wings, they're like, if they're just allowing me to fly, okay, big whoop. It's not that is impressive. But now I have an actual game mechanic that says, because my wings are so cool looking, I get to add an extra d6 to my charge. And to me, that's just a cool narrative thing. So Lee, what's your take on this guy when you first saw him? And any favor one way or the other?
I mean, again, it's a beautiful sculpt. Really nice place, tactical rock, just kind of off the foot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of there, but it's kind of not. To me, it feels quite nautical. So I wonder, just with the trident aspect of it, it has me, thinking of Poseidon. But I think it's great. And again, I love the idea of that extra dice roll, that they almost appear like a flash of lightning. I think it says there they cross the battlefield in a blur of light. So this idea of that they appear with a force, like a lightning bolt. So when they arrive, they're gonna arrive with just a greater speed, hence that extra roll. So if I'm a Stormcast player, I'm not, but if I was, I'd have these in my army.
Yeah.
Are these a single model or are they a unit?
That's a good question. I want to say that they're probably going to be a unit of 3 is my guess. Again, I have Stormcast. I have never actually played them, unfortunately. But I've got the Spearhead box that I am hoping to get to, part of Pile of Potential. And I've got dragons. I've got several Stormcast models that I've yet to paint, and then I've got the 4th edition launch box coming out soon. So I've got plenty of Stormcast coming my way, and these guys are they're really cool looking sculpts. I don't know. I assume they come in 3s. Is my guess.
It said they're the heralds of righteousness, so I would imagine that there's more than one.
Yeah.
Just with that,
I wouldn't see 5. To me, this is a kind of like the Annihilators, which are the Terminator units of Age of Sigmar for Stormcast. Those are the beefy armored guys. To me, these remind me of Annihilators with wings. Probably not as beefy, a little easier to kill, but much more mobile, of course. and they can charge in quickly.
It seems like that's one of those things within Sigmar, is that you have, like, you'll have your 10, your almost like your squad, and then you'll have a 3, and then you'll have a standalone. So if you look at the Seraphon box, you've got the lizard on the lizard, and then you've got the 3 Croxigores, and then you've got the Saurus warriors as part of that. So I wonder if that's what we're going to see as well. We're going to see more one big model, and then a set of 3, and then a squad, or a unit. So it'll be interesting, because just to see how it plays out, especially as Spearhead rolls out. But that is a really nice model, really, really well put together. It's Stormcast stuff is looking good.
I'm excited. And I've got plenty to build, plenty to paint, and that leads into our last topic, as you mentioned, with Spearhead. That has been officially, it's been officially announced already, but they're really starting to come out with more details around Spearhead. There was an article on Warcom today. They showed off the Cities of Sigmar Spearhead box. I think they've already shown this before. I want to say that they have, because I remember the little castle-y unit that they have here. I think that's, what is that, a cannon type unit with the guy loading the barrels and stuff. I think they've shown this before, but they had several pictures up. One, here's the flesh eater courts. They've shown these off, just as a reminder that the Spearhead boxes are there. But one of the big announcements they made today, which was I would say is kind of a nice bit of news, is that the old Vanguard boxes. So if you were an Age of Sigmar player and you bought a Vanguard box, which was more the small box set, it's replaced the Start Collecting boxes. If you've been around for a little while, back in the 8th edition, 7th edition days of 40K, they used to have Start Collecting boxes, and they unified that with the Age of Sigmar Start Collecting. Well, those were replaced by Vanguard, and now Vanguard is being replaced by Spearhead. But the good news is that if you have a Vanguard box, it's not like they're going to come out with a new Spearhead box, which is different from the Vanguard. They have stated today on a Warcom site that it is the same. Vanguard and Spearhead are one and the same. So you've got an old Vanguard box, you now have a Spearhead army, which is really, really cool. A good value. One of the things that they showed off for, if you have, and I'll put this up on the screen, they talked about reinforcements. So if you've got the reinforcements keyword in your Spearhead force, then it's basically just acts like, instead of just reinforcements that you would play in 40K as just bringing somebody in, from reserve, this is more of a resurrection. So if you pick a friendly reinforcements unit that's been destroyed, and then you can set them up wholly within 6 inches of the battlefield, not in combat. So it's kind of like bringing them in from reserve, like in 40K, but in Age of Sigmar, you get to revive them, which is a cool thing specifically for Spearhead. And the reason I bring that up is because we talked about this before with the multiplayer of Combat Patrol, and there was one particular mission where you could bring back units that were destroyed during the game of Combat Patrol. And yeah, it was annoying if you took out an entire unit and they just came back the very next round. But what was cool is that, number one, you got points for taking out those units in the multiplayer Combat Patrol, and then but if you're the player that lost that unit, you could bring them right back, and you never really felt like you were out of the game. So I like something like this. I would assume that a lot of the units within Spearhead are not going to have the reinforcements keyword. It's not going to be all of them. It's just going to be a select few. But the ones that are going to have them, if you've got a quote unquote weaker army, some weaker units, but they all have reinforcements, I like the idea, maybe the Gloomspite gets, right, that they've got the smaller units that are probably easier to kill. Maybe they'll have the reinforcements keyword, and they could just keep coming back over and over and over again. And that's a really cool mechanic, and it never really feels like you're completely out of the game. So I really like this rule. But then what I wanted to get to, and this will close this out here. I'm going to put this up on the screen, and I'm going to read it verbatim as part of the article today. They talked about Spearhead's footprint being, where you can play on a kitchen table. That's something we all know. But then they put in this paragraph here: the incoming launch box provides everything you need to play with a friend, including 2 complete spearhead forces, terrain, a double-sided board with printed objectives, and the packs of cards that really make this mode tick. You'll also get a beautiful hardcover book that includes everything you need to play, the core rules, the Spearhead battle pack, and the rules for every Spearhead force in the game, so you can start playing with your existing collections immediately. So I had 2 schools of thought. I mean, on one hand, I'm thinking, is this a Spearhead launch box? Are they doing something different than just okay, you've got 4th edition, Age of Sigmar, Skaven, Stormcast. Here's the launch box. It comes with the rule book, kind of like what they did with Leviathan for 10th edition. But this sounds like it's a Spearhead launch box that's standalone from the 4th edition. Is this one in the same? I mean, what's your read on this? It comes with terrain and everything.
I mean, I just wonder if this is just the open door to everything. I would imagine that it would be the full 4th rule set, but within it, it's got the combat patrol rules within it. Not combat patrol, sorry, the
Spearhead.
Because if I remember right, yeah, didn't Leviathan have all the combat patrol rules in them for the army?
Yeah, it did, but it didn't have terrain.
Yeah.
And that's it didn't have did it have the double-sided board? I think it did, right? Did it come with boards?
No.
Okay.
No board, just the set. I wonder if it's just something that they've heard people talk about. It feels like if 40K gets a lot of the traction and I'm looking to revive, and bring a fresh wave of people, I'm going to give you everything that you need. Like and that's what this feels like. This feels like if you're going to begin Sigmar, this is everything you need. Here's the terrain pieces. This is the board. This is the games. I think it's a really smart idea. And I would imagine, it would be the full rule set, but in that is the Spearhead, because I can't see them releasing this and then them doing another release. So I'd imagine it's all in one. I like the idea. I mean, I wasn't going to buy the box set. I wasn't going to buy it. I was just going to wait and just buy, the rule book when it comes out. But now I'm like, there's terrain and there's all of this. Like I could be tempted.
Maybe, I mean, it's not going to be it's not going to be amazing terrain. It's going to be, because I remember what they did in, I want to say 9th edition at the launch of 9th edition for 40K. They had several sets where you could buy. It was Necrons and Space Marines, and you could buy just I can't remember what they were called. They had like 3 or 4 different box sets, and they were differing like sizes of armies. So if you wanted to start really, really small, it would come with 2 or 3 units of Space Marines and 4 or 5 units of Necrons, and the terrain, if you will, was just the box. You could turn over the box and it looked like a building or something. But then if you bought the next setup, it'd give you a couple more models, and it included a ruin or 2. And then if you bought the top tier box set, it had lots of different terrain. So they've done this before. I would imagine they're going to do something similar, but in this time, maybe more focused types of terrain instead of multiple boxes.
Maybe, as long as they bring those like little round balls that have the cocktail sticks put through them from like classic Warhammer. That do you remember those ones?
Yeah.
I want those.
Yeah.
Give me 2 of those. I tell you what I'd love, and it won't happen again. This is just blue sky thinking, but it's almost, I would love for it to be, okay, here's the box, here's the rules, here's the terrain. Now pick your Spearhead. So I could go, hey, I don't want Skaven. I want, Gloomspite Gits. I want those. And then I want the vampires, Soulblight, Blight, Gravelords. I want those 2. That would be really cool, where you could pick,
mix and match.
Pick it, or what we say in England is like pick and mix, like pick it, mix it up type thing. But it's going to be, here's Stormcast and here's Skaven. Like we can see where that's going. But that would be fun if you could actually pick your own Spearhead forces. That would make it really like
Well, you can. They would just say, yeah, all you got to do is just buy these 2 boxes separately.
But
I see what you're saying. It's like it's the package deal, which is walking into a store and then walking out with everything that you need to play. Going back to Star Wars Unlimited, the card game, I bought the 2-player starter set, right? So it came with all the tokens and two packs and everything I needed to start playing. I like that idea of walking into the Warhammer store. Now, it's a little different with models because you never have it. You can walk out of there and you still don't have everything that you need because you have to clip all this stuff out and get glue and do the whole thing. But it would be nice. I like the idea of a package set with everything that you need to play. So if you walked in with a buddy and you had here are the 2 Spearhead. I keep saying combat patrol. Here are the 2 Spearhead forces, and you got everything that you need: terrain, cards. It said printed objectives, which I would assume are the little tokens like they have in 40K with skull on them or something. Maybe hammers instead. I like the idea. I like what they're doing with Spearhead. I am excited about Spearhead because of our love of combat patrol. Now, the one thing I'm really hoping for, maybe they'll do it in a future White Dwarf, is multiplayer rules for Spearhead. Because again, another plug for multiplayer combat patrol rules that are in issue 498 of White Dwarf. If you haven't picked that up, it's the one with Vashtor on the front. Go get it. It's green on the front with Vashtor. It really is a great issue, and those multiplayer rules are gold. So highly recommend that. But I'm hoping that they release multiplayer for Spearhead as well. So Lee, I don't know if they'll come out with a pick your own Spearhead box like the Lego store or something. but you can always dream. So
can always dream.
All right, that's right. Like the worst thing they could tell you is no.
That's it.
Right? Or they could just ignore you completely, which is what will most likely happen. That's kind of like telling you no.
Yeah.
Well, exciting times for Age of Sigmar. I know for our listeners, most are 40K players, but I know we've got some Age of Sigmar players too. If you are a 40K player and you've never played Age of Sigmar, try it out. Get a Spearhead box. It is a different game. I think you will find that even though maybe you're into sci-fi more than swords and shields, that Age of Sigmar is, I would say, more deadly. They dish out mortal wounds like crazy. It is a simpler game by design, and you'll be asking like, why isn't 40K this simple? I would argue that it's potentially the better game. That 40K has the better lore and the better community, but Age of Sigmar has the better game, in my opinion. So I'm hoping 4th edition will just builds on that, and maybe Spearhead is the way to get other people. But if you are a 40K player, check out Spearhead coming out. I think it's a great entry point. And we'd love to see, your comments or pictures or anything of any Spearhead forces that you decide to pick up. So hit us up, let us know. All right. Well, that will do it for this episode of season 2 of the Dadhammer Podcast. Thank you for all of our listeners and viewers that have joined us for the previous year, and we look forward to providing more content for you in season 2. Thanks to the Chaplain, I am David the Warboss, your host, and until next time, remember that all of your pile of potential boxes can double as terrain. Have a great week. Take care, everyone.